Good evening and welcome to the Rangers Rabble Academy exclusive interview with James Maxwell. How's it going, mate?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Aye, all good. I've obviously gave you the pep talk before we started there, so don't get yourself into any trouble, or me, because we'll probably both get shot. So,
No doubt, no doubt.
Right, we'll start off. How did you actually end up signing for Rangers?
So I was obviously at Ayr when I was about 9, I'd say, to about 14, 15 when we moved for my dad's job, basically, and then I had to find a club when I moved here, and it was Forth Valley, which was part of like Falkirk, Stennismuir, and another team. I went in there for about 8 weeks, and it was I done all right, but it's like going on trial and stuff like that. It's no ideal, especially like moving house and all that. I found it quite tough when I was at 15. So look, by the skin of my teeth, really, I managed to get a year there, where basically they said, literally in the contract meeting and all that, we're going to give you a year, but you're going to need to do a lot to get like another year. Basically saying, like, because of what I'd shown in the trial wasn't really my best, but luckily they gave us a year, and for then when I'd signed, I'd done really well. So I spent a couple of years at Falkirk. Then obviously at Christmas time that year, it was maybe 2017, 2018, they shut down their academy to put money into the first team, which went really well. So I was then like a free agent for the next 6 months, whatever. But luckily in Rangers, and I think maybe a couple of weeks after that in January, had offered us a trial. I went in there for a couple of weeks, and then I also went down to Brighton for a couple of weeks, just to sort of get a feel of the different places. I really enjoyed my time at Brighton as well, but I was at 16, moving away from home and all that wasn't really what I was wanting to do. So came back to Rangers for a week or two, and then I wasn't actually offered a professional contract until, because I think maybe because of the timing and stuff like that, and I think it was February. So I was just on like a sort of like a youth contract until May that year, where I was just like sort of in and out of I think it was maybe the 17s at the time.
Yeah.
Basically just try to get myself a deal over a longer period of time. I think in May of that year, I got a 2-year, I think it was a 2-year first contract, which I was really happy with, because I thought I'd done well. Like, I'd shown in spells what I could do, but in terms of the level I'm at now, it was miles off it.
Yeah, I actually remember you playing a few of those games, and obviously that was like a ridiculously strong 17s / as it changed the next year, I think it was, to the 18s.
Yeah.
So anybody that came in trial had to be pretty good. So I think when you got your 2-year deal, there was that kind of eye opener to think, James obviously must have something, because we were obviously only seeing you for very small periods. I mean, obviously you were in training, you were obviously impressing the coaches, but yeah, I mean, the first kind of couple of games, it was kind of, who is this guy? Can we find out who he is? Where's he come from?
Yeah.
And then we obviously managed to find out, and obviously the end's history, because you managed to get a 2-year deal at the end of it.
I can imagine, because I used to, like 17s, when I used to play at 4-5 and stuff, I used to wear the stupid like low socks and all that. I used to think I was Jack Grealish, and I just wasn't that presentable in terms of the way I looked at my pitch and all that. But over that course, I think I probably learned what it was like to be a Rangers player, and how I needed to sort of present myself, and how I needed to work off the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of comes to the next question. Obviously, next to that, you obviously went on to win the League and Cup double, and you were obviously quite a regular kind of starter in that team at that point as well. How did that feel, to really like sort of cement your place in that team and to win the League and Cup double?
Yeah, well, before I'd even came to Rangers, I took a good few thumpings off the team that I played in, 8-2s and everything, just the usual. And so I knew already that it was hard to break in. But over pre-season, I think it was maybe a couple of injuries to the boys who'd been playing left back, and that was basically I was just like, I think it was Morton when I was playing in a friendly, and they were just like, just go and play there and see how you do. And I think I'd done pretty well. And that was my pathway into that team, because at the time it was front four was Josh, Dapple, Kai, Matty maybe or something, or
Matty,
someone else was like, I'm forgetting. So like, what chance you got? You know what I mean? Like, those boys were our top. So that was my pathway into that 18s team, was playing at left back, and that coincided with us being very, very good that year. We'd only maybe dropped maybe 6 points maybe over that league. And we won that, which we played some really good stuff at times. And the cup final, even the cup run, was really good, but the final was the cherry on top of the cake. It was also a very good game, and they played their part.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, that team at times was pretty scary, to be honest. You know, you were playing against some of their teams that were perceived to be good in the 18s, but you would like take like 5 and 6 and 7 goals off them. And it felt at times that it wasn't even that difficult. I don't want to be disrespectful, but it didn't seem at times, because guys like Josh and Dapple were just like sort of tearing defences apart, and then you guys like sort of Dixie in the middle of the park, you Kyle in there, obviously Nathan and yourself pushing forward for fullback. I mean, there was just so much quality in that team, and obviously a lot of the guys that are out on loan now are part of that team, and many of them are now playing regular football at a very good level, which is, you know, it shows you the quality of that team. And I think that's probably one of the strongest Rangers squads that I've seen at any of the age groups. They were just too good for everybody, to be perfectly honest.
It's no surprise to see all like the boys that are. This is probably like the best sort of crop of players that went out on loan in 1 year and done well. Like, I had the easiest job in football in that 18s. I'd just get the ball and pass it to Kai or Josh and just run around them, and they would go and take it past 4. You know what I mean, it was easy stuff. Really.
Yeah, even that day, even just to finish off, being like that day at the Orium, I think we took the lead, didn't we? And then Hearts equalised.
Yeah.
And then I think we went 2-1 up. And then I think Kai scored a free kick, like top bin finish. Yeah. And I think that summed up the season. It was like individual moments of brilliance for either Josh or Kai or Dapo. And like Matty's goal scoring rate was like ridiculous. Matty was averaging like more than a goal a game.
Matty, honestly, I know he's doing well, but he's the best, like, in terms of pure striking in our football, he's probably the best I've seen.
Yeah, like in terms of like natural striking ability, it was ridiculous. I mean, I think we were all surprised that day when he did leave, obviously, but he gets so much natural ability to score goals, and hopefully now down at Stranraer he's going to, you know, score a lot of goals and you know, sort of progress his career further and further over the coming years. Right, moving on, obviously because you won the league, we ended up playing in the UEFA Youth League. What was that like, kind of playing against like young boys? I think it was Slovan Bratislava and then eventually Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, so you obviously, like, when players talk about like different feelings of playing like Champions League football and all that, like, I know it's obviously different. Youth League is like a mini version of it, but you had the different feeling playing young boys away was different to your Aberdeen away. Aberdeen used to start running now, but you still had that different feel when you were playing the games. And obviously there was more, you had like spectators and that there, which wasn't, you know, common. You know, you maybe had 100 maybe at every league game, but I think it was the Champions League games at Firhill was over 1,000. So you got that different energy when you're playing in those games. And I think you've probably seen that the young boys game home and away was, you know, back and forward, and I think they were very good. I think you've seen probably the best of us in that competition, whereas sometimes in the league you get like a few slack performances and stuff where you know you're going to win, but you know you don't have to turn up fully to win. Whereas when you had to be 100% because we're playing the top teams for all over Europe.
Yeah, how difficult was that Atletico game? I mean, it looked horrific up in the stands. I mean, they looked like they were just incredible that day. I know one of the boys, I think, was on loan at Bournemouth last season. Yeah. I think that was the guy that was one-on-one with Nathan Patterson most of the game. But I mean, they looked exceptional. Just how good were they?
We've seen the video of them the week before, and we thought they look decent. They might have the number, but nah, they were different level. We played Young Boys in Bratislava, who were decent. Young Boys was very good, and Bratislava were decent. They were a tough game, but Atletico, what Riquelme you're talking about, was just different level to anything that we'd experienced, and obviously it stood Nathan in good stead.
Yeah, it was funny because we obviously travelled to Bratislava to obviously watch you guys playing. I think you broke your nose, didn't you? And I was obviously remember.
I don't look the best at the best of times, and having a big strapped up nose doesn't help.
Looks remember us. I was doing like some of the tweets, putting them out saying, James has had to come off. He's had a slight injury. And I think like your dad's messaging saying, is it bad? And I said, no, it's just a broken nose.
I know.
But you were fine. Yeah. I mean, you obviously come back on and you finished the game. But I mean, was that quite an impressive night that you went to Bratislava and beat what was a reasonably good team?
Yeah, well, I think at Farhow in the first leg, we should probably put more past them in terms of goals because we had the number a wee bit.
Yeah.
But then only 2-0 and they scored the first goal, I think. Right. We went there and it was like the tunnel was like a war tunnel and all that. It was like a mile to the stadium underneath. It was a proper sort of Eastern European stadium and atmosphere in terms of they were right in the faces and all that. So it was a different kind of challenge to the ones we faced at Young Boys in Bratislava. But I think that probably showed the quality of our team and sort of the mental side of going there, and I think we won 2-1 in the end.
Yeah, that's right. Just moving on then slightly to your career with Scotland. I know, speaking to your dad a few times, it was obviously the dream to get the Scotland call. What was it like when you got the call up to the under-19s at that point for Scotland?
Yeah, I feel like it was something that me and my family had sort of thought about it all over ever since I started. Really, we felt like I'd sort of been overlooked a bit because I was playing with Ayr and both Valley and stuff like that. So it was more my dad that was probably a wee bit more had his head on that sort of achievement. But obviously Rangers would get better exposure, and we felt like it was probably a long time coming that I got a call up. But you don't take it for granted. It was probably the most, I'd say that night we played Germany was probably the most proud I've came off a pitch. Right. Playing with Scotland, beating Germany under 19s. That was one of the moments you come off a pitch like that, like wow. Because I feel like I've been building up for 10 years, 15 years that I've been playing football.
Yeah. I suppose that's the only problem, isn't it? Like Scotland obviously kind of skips almost for the 19s to the 21s. So there's that kind of little gap in between. Is that like a step that you would love to take next to try and get a game for the Scotland under 21s? Is that like your next kind of step in, the Scotland ladder?
Well, it's obviously the next step in the Scotland ladder, but it's not something that really like massively in my head.
Right.
In terms of I need to get in the Scotland 21s. Like, that should automatically sort of take care of itself if I'm doing well with whoever I'm playing with. If I'm doing well, then I should always be in with intention of being in that squad. And if I'm, then great, I'm happy to be in it. If not, then my time will come again.
Right. No, I mean that's the right attitude to have, because I think as you've seen over the years, not necessarily everybody plays at every level for Scotland, but they can still go on to be a Scotland international. No. So, it isn't the be all and end all. Moving forward then to when you kind of stepped away from the 18s and kind of took that next step up, playing in the Challenge Cup, what was that like, playing against some of the Scottish lower league teams and then teams for Northern Ireland and then teams for England and then a team for Wales?
Well, I think it would have been something that the sort of club had always looked at as if they hadn't really done well in. I think the previous teams hadn't done well in the Challenge Cup, and they always thought they could have done better, like teams like Zach Rimmer and all that, and it could have done better. So we really focused on that. That competition, it was Berwick our first game, and if we didn't realise like how tough that men's football would be, and playing against the teams, and that was a right good lesson, because I think we only scraped through 2-1, and they were in the 5th tier. So it was a horrible game. But I think that probably stood us in good stead for the rest of the competition when we had to go to Well, I was talking about Solihull earlier. That was the land of the giants down there that they put up against us wee boys.
Yeah, it was quite a strange run. I think it was it Berwick, then we went to Stranraer.
No, yeah, Stranraer was tough as well.
And then we ended up over in Northern Ireland. Was it Northern Ireland first, and then we went to England?
Ballymena was. I think about it, actually every game was just it wasn't really like a performance you'd probably expect for a Rangers team. It was probably more a battling performance than any quality in the pitch. Ballymena was just a dogfight for 90 minutes. I think it was Solihull after that over them, and that was just a long throw central for them. And fair play it worked for them because I think they were 3-1 up, but they were just obviously played in the fact that we were all young boys and they just battered long balls. It wasn't really much we could do, you know.
No.
But, I think we 3 each, was it, in that game we came back?
Yeah.
I think they tired quite a bit because when we had the ball, we kept it quite well, but we just, as soon as it went up there, we didn't really have a chance.
No, it was tough to watch. I remember sitting in the stand, just watching as they come out, and then I looked at the size of our players and thought, right, this could be quite a long 90 minutes. But to be fair, I mean, I think the one thing that night showed was that there was a lot of character in that team, because even when that ball kept coming in, you know, the players just kept going for it. They kept trying to win every header. They kept trying to put in every challenge that they could. And I think even just going back to like the Ballymena game, I mean, that was quite a physical contest that night. So I think we scraped through 1-0, didn't we? And I think there was a wee bit of kind of argy-bargy sort of towards the end of the game. But yeah, again, that kind of showed like the camaraderie in that squad.
Yeah,
I think that, you know, kind of moving forward. And we saw that in Solihull, because I think was it 3-1 we were down at one point, I think?
Yeah.
Gresta scored a couple that night.
Yeah.
And that obviously helped us. And then like the penalty shootout was just crazy.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody just looked at the size of our goalkeeper and just thought as long as he hit it like kind of high enough into the net and score.
Yeah.
But he had a couple of incredible saves.
Yeah.
And
I think that was a characteristic of that squad we weren't mentally all there in terms of there was a wee screw all over the park really. So even if people were on each other, even when we were 17 and that, if you made a mistake, well, people were on you. Yeah. So I think that probably helped them playing against men, that when we needed to dig in or whatever, people weren't scared to dig each other out and fight for each other, which is a good characteristic, with more so probably a few of the other boys than myself. But that cup run was very good. I think it topped it off with Wrexham. Wrexham at Ibrox was good. I think we had 5,000 maybe. I think they put out quite a decent side, and 2-0 was it? We turned them over, and we played some good stuff throughout that run.
Yeah, but I actually thought our best performance was the game against Inverness. I thought we actually played some great football that day. I know you ended up going on the bench.
Yeah.
After me getting up with your dad to Inverness and the car.
That wouldn't have been a good ride home.
No, I'll not put the words out that your dad said.
No.
But look, it was great. I thought the fact we got to the semi-final showed how much quality that team had. I thought the fact we went to Inverness and took the lead showed the quality we had. And potentially on another night, we could have went through, you know. And Inverness put out a pretty strong team.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the words of John Robertson after the match was very complimentary about all the players, about how we try to play. Dapple was outstanding that night. Like, he used his physicality against their big centre backs. Kai was his usual dancing feet. I mean, like, they just couldn't get close to him. And then that was the sort of game, like, we enjoyed that physical element because we had to do it against Solihull and Ballymena. So, like, it showed that we were always up for the battle. And I thought that probably made quite a lot of the younger players that season, because they realised, look, we can play at this level. We can stand up to these guys. We're good enough technically to stand up to them, and we can do it physically now as well. And I thought that was a really big thing out of that campaign.
Definitely. I think the thing we came away with after that cup run was that we'd be up there challenging for the championship if it was on the ball. Yeah. See, off the ball, like, we had to improve in terms of we'd be fighting relegation if we're in the Championship off the ball, because I think that game probably highlighted the deficiencies in the squad, but also how the quality that went.
What did you make of the best versus best when the club started talking about that? Was that like something exciting for the players, or was it not until you really played in them that you really seen the quality of opposition?
I think at the time we were a wee bit, because we'd seen, I was in and out, like on the bench for the Reds and stuff when I was at 17, so I'd seen the games against the Scottish teams, and they were decent, but you never really, they didn't really excite you. But they done a job for that year. But I think when it was the best yes, it was depending on who we were playing, and sort of the level of competition that, if we're gonna do this, we may as well do it properly. And I think the highlights of that sort of best v best strategy was obviously Ajax. Was a big one, even though it was the hottest day in the world, and it was when they run a bit from like more than 5 minutes. But that was probably the best moment in terms of seeing how good they were, but we can still produce something against them. Yeah, and I think I don't know if you were at this game, but it was Nordsjælland over in Denmark.
No, I don't think we were at that one, no.
They've got like the Right to Dream Academy, and
right.
Oh my, those boys were like Atletico. Those were different, like something that we've not seen before.
Yeah,
like, and that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to expose you to players that you're not going to see in Scotland or the level, because we're used to Rangers United probably going to be the top 2 or 3 teams, if not the best, in the league. So most of the time you're doing the same stuff. You're dominating the ball, like just playing the way you would against anyone, but against Nordsjælland and Ajax, and I can't remember, it escapes me some of the other teams, but the top teams, you need to play differently. You don't get the time on the ball. So I think that helped us in terms of understanding that I were good, but there's some very good players out there still.
No, I mean, I think that's like a great sort of build up to everything that's like now taking you to Queen of the South. How did that move come about? Were they the only team that was interested at that point, or was that the level that you wanted to go to?
Well, I'd sort of had in mind that I'd ended the season, and I thought that I'm going to set myself that if I can get a championship, right. Obviously my first season as a defender, I think will someday be willing to sort of not take a risk in terms of bringing on an 18-year-old defender. So I was setting my level at that, and I thought that I was maybe going to go to Ayr, because I'd worked with Mark Kerr before the Falkirk, and I knew him, and I knew Mick, who was the assistant manager at the time. So I actually thought I was going to go there, but that ended up not happening. Then I was kind of left in a wee bit of limbo. I'd heard a few stuff, and I'd ended up basically with either Falkirk in League One still, or Queen of the South, and it was kind of 50-50 in terms of you'd be going to Falkirk to play you'd expect them to be up the top of the league, playing attacking football, probably closer to what I was used to at Rangers, being for a league and stuff. But it's a level below Queen of the South, who, if you looked at their previous seasons, had finished like 8th, 9th, right towards the bottom of the division.
Yeah.
You think maybe that's not going to be the prettiest, but basically, I don't know, I would say, just go for the sort of higher level. Because even if I had done well in League One this year, I ended up in the Championship next year. So I ended up at Queen of the South. So,
has the level surprised you at the Championship? Is it tougher than what you first envisaged before you went out on loan?
Well, I think what probably helped me was when I was at Ayr, and when I lived in Ayr, I'd watched a lot. I used to go to the games and all that, so I watched a lot of that sort of level of football, where it was League One or Championship. So I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that it's not something to be looked down upon. There's good players in there. So I think that sort of experience of being at the lower clubs, it made it easier to transition, because I've been to most of the stadiums, and I know what the level's like. I know it's sometimes not pretty.
No, I think that's something you understand, is it? I mean, I know even though it's just a level below the Premier League, But when you go to like the stadiums and you see the facilities and stuff like that, it is a bit of a difference, you know. And for players, it's probably just getting used to not being at the training ground all the time. When you have to go to some of these other stadiums, at times it's in tiny wee dressing rooms, and you know, you're having to get out in the pitch that's maybe not the best in the winter time, and it's not being covered properly. And I think that's just like the kind of shock to the system that you need to get out of the way, because you know, once you've got that out of the way, like your ability will always show. Because if you're a good player, you'll play good on any surface, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think especially with COVID as well. If you add that in terms of we were limited at Queens to what facilities we could even use. So you know, you went like 5-6 months without having a gym. So you'd literally be in training, come in your training gear, train, go in, same training gear, just go home. Like, you'd be in it an hour and a half where you don't get as much time to work on yourself and sort of gel with the, you know, in that short space of time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that'll be interesting for a lot of supporters to hear, because most guys probably think you're just back in doing like the normal training sessions, but clearly that isn't the case, and you're very much shut down in a lot of ways. You know, you can only do a set amount each day, and because of the whole social distancing at the time and being able to have contact, it makes it really, really difficult for managers and coaches to really get across what they want you to do, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely.
What's been the biggest challenge for you this year in terms of the opposition? Has any particular player that you've played against really stood out and thought this is going to be a really tough afternoon?
Definitely. I can think of, I knew before the game, Martin Boyle would be probably my toughest, which is a level above where we're playing. And he's probably one of the best players in the Premier League. So I knew he would be probably one of my toughest challenges. I think Paul McMullen at Dundee. He's obviously played loads of games in the Premier League for Dundee United, and he was good. There's a few others that I'm getting. Dom Thomas at Dunfermline, also very good. And another one that was in my head, Luke McCowan at Ayr, also very good. He's probably different to the others in terms of left foot. He's done it better than what I did, but what I used to do, try to come inside and come into the pockets and all that. So I think, listen, every team in that championship has good players, and especially with COVID, that you see some strange transfers with players like dropping down a level, and so the level of competition is, I wouldn't say it's underrated, but I think it's maybe underappreciated that, you know, looking down for Premier League teams, how big the level is in the championship.
Had you set yourself a target in your own mind about how many games you wanted to play or how many goals you wanted to score, anything like that?
Well, I've done some. I had a phone call with Kirky, basically just setting some rough targets. But in my head, I said I probably wanted to, before the start of the season, I'd say like 75%, 80% of the games would be a good level. In terms of goals and assists, I didn't really know what to expect, so I set myself like 2 or 3 maybe goals and assists. That's not really something that I do or motivates me every season, is like getting to a certain number or whatever. You just play football, and if you score a goal, then but I'm not one that thinks, I need to score a goal a day to get to 5 goals in 25 games or whatever. So that's probably more for Rangers in terms of having their, you know, he wants to get X amount of games. But obviously, it's worked out well in terms of played 32 starts, I think I had, and 5 goals, 3 assists. So yeah, I wouldn't have set my standard probably that high at the start of the season. So it's good to probably exceed.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, like, it sounds like you've exceeded your expectations, which is great, you know, because if you set out with a kind of rough plan and then you do better, then that can only be a good thing. All right, moving on to the kind of last bit. Obviously, you've returned to Rangers again, training with the first team and things like that. What's the kind of plan between now and the end of the season? Is it just to keep yourself going and then see what happens in the summer?
Well, I'm not sure what my plan was, but the last couple of months I've been playing through or managing an injury, so I'm going to get that sorted basically before the start of next season. So it's more a case of probably just batting in the gym and try to bulk up again and take that into next season rather than risk it with an injury or whatever that could set me back a couple of months. So I don't know what the plan is in terms of myself next season, whether it's a loan or whatever it is. Yeah, I have to talk about that over the summer.
It's interesting, obviously, when I put out a poll earlier for the player of the season for the academy, there was a lot of guys saying they would love to see you being challenged at the next level, which obviously in Scotland means you're playing at the top tier. When you look at maybe like Stephen Kelly, have you seen any of his football this season for Ross County, and is that potentially the next step for you if you were to go back out on loan again, or would you like to look to maybe try to England or somewhere else?
Obviously I'd seen a lot of Stevie when he was playing for there. I'd seen how well he'd done. I think it's probably put me in a similar boat to himself in terms of we both had really good season in the Championship.
Yeah.
Obviously went up to Ross County and he's done well, but it's no, they're fighting towards the bottom. So I don't really have anything in mind in terms of I want to a certain club or a certain league. If an opportunity, if an opportunity comes up, then I'll have to weigh up and see if it's right for me. But I'm not actively looking at saying I need to get to this level or anything.
No, that's great, mate. Really appreciate you coming on and speaking to us and giving us so much information. Hopefully, it gives a lot of people an insight into, being a footballer and how it isn't always the straightest of paths that gets you to the end goal. You've obviously been at a couple of clubs and then all of a sudden you've been released without being told, really. The club's gone, they've decided to cut the academy, and then you've ended up at Rangers and look at where you are now. So I think again, as I always say, it's never always the easiest ways to get to the top, but you'll get there eventually, and it's just having to do it in different manners. From what I've seen of you this season alone, I think you've played really well. I managed to catch a couple of the games when I've not been working. It's just kind of Mr. Consistent, I suppose you would say. It's maybe not one of those guys that's a 9 or a 10 or a 5 or a 6, but you're always a 7 or an 8. You're always doing the kind of same consistent things, which I think for a fullback is important. I think you feel like that every week. And obviously you scored the goal against Hibs, which I know the defeat was obviously tough, but, to score against a Premier League team's a big deal. And I think that showed that night that you had your quality. And I saw the game against Queen's Park, which was great as well, playing on the pitch at Hampden. Yet again, another great experience to be on that. So hopefully it's only the beginning, and we'll see what next season brings as well. So thanks very much for coming on, mate. I really appreciate it.
No worries, mate.
Cheers, mate. And thanks to everybody for listening. I really appreciate you taking your time to listen out. Hopefully this is just the start of many interviews to come from some of the players at the academy. Thanks very much. Take care. Cheers. Bye.